All right on cue. Our good buddy, Mr. Tom Hazzard, the man, the myth, the podcasting legend, the guy behind Podetize.com, and so many other podcasts out there. Him and his team do an amazing job in they're being the largest podcast production company, full service podcast production company in the world. And absolutely always honored, not only just a great guy, but also a very good friend. And enjoy the fact that we've gotten to know each other pretty well over the last 4 or 5 years, traveled a lot, hung out, laughed, drank some tequila and some sushi is usually what ends up happening when we're around each other at the end of the day. Huh, Bud?
It does. Yeah. Hey, thanks so much, Scott. It's great to be here. Can you hear me okay? I'm hoping.
Yeah, everything sounds good, man.
Okay,
Enjoying the
good,
nice
good.
blue green screen you got going on behind it, the new toys you're dealing with, which is good stuff, man.
Yeah, actually, I've definitely been trying to, talking about social media and up leveling your game. I've really been trying to do some new things with my presentations. And anyway, but I'm getting ahead of myself. But thank you so much for having me on. It's always a pleasure. And I just thought I would share just briefly a little bit about me, if that's cool.
Yeah, bring up your slides. I know you got some slides there because good stuff for people too, don't no?
Yeah. Not not a ton. I want to bore people too much with slides. Okay. Now I'm just trying to find my here. Gotta find myself here on one of this, and I'll get it together here. Okay, there we go. So I thought I'd share that these are our two podcasts, and for podcasters, Feed Your Brand, and also the Binge Factor. And actually, this is an interesting thing to talk about because Feed Your Brand was always our podcast for years for podcasters, but I want to talk about pivoting that a little bit. And we actually pivoted the show. I think it was in December or January this year to now. Tracy started recording a lot of episodes. Tracy's my business partner. Actually, I should probably share that with you first. So I'll do that. So,
and you better.
Yeah. So here you go. So Tracy, this actually is part of a keynote presentation Tracy gives. I've kind of hijacked some of her slides, and the trust us there is meant to be. This is meant to be an example of you don't just put all the stuff about yourself and expect everybody to trust you, right? And it's really, your show's got to be more about what's in it for the audience, less than what's all about you. But this does give you a little information. I mean, Tracy's been a columnist for Inc. She currently, has articles up in BuzzFeed. We've been written about by the Harvard Business Review. And then the bottom four here are different podcasts of ours that we've had over the years, and they're all still live today. But we've been in business for over 25 years, and we've been in podcasting for about 6 years, and then the beginnings of what became Podetize started about 5 years ago. And boy, it's come a long way. But in any case, I mostly just want to give you just a little bit about us. I mean, Tracy's the CEO, I'm the CTO, and co-founders of Podetize. And really, it's all about helping people be seen, heard, and found. Helping market and grow their brand, their business, just using podcasting or video as the starting point. And so Feed Your Brand, we've had this, and we still have it. I mostly have taken the lead on that one. I mean, we are technically co-hosts, but you'll hear me on more episodes there than Tracy, where we talk about, tips, techniques, what's working today, what's not, more, functional, tactical stuff about podcasting. But Tracy started interviewing top podcasters about what makes their show bingeable. And then we spun that off this year as another podcast called The Binge Factor. And it's incredibly popular. It's already getting way more listens than Feed Your Brand. And Tracy is a great interviewer and a lot of fun. But really what it gets at is, hey, top podcasters, what has made them successful? And it's never the same thing twice. So it's fascinating. So I recommend people check that out. But what I thought, Scott, talking about National Social Media Day, and part of it is my, video presentation that I'm sort of have up-leveled our video game, especially since COVID-19 came, because we didn't just want to do the same old thing. And how do we stand out? Tracy's given some very popular presentations and a keynote at the Utah Podcast Summit a couple of weeks ago that went very, very well. But I thought I would just share a few nuggets from her presentation that are more relevant to, I thought, social media and how we're all promoting ourselves. Does that sound good?
Perfect. Sounds great, man.
All right. So I want to, and I am giving Tracy full credit here because she is that my phone or is that?
It's my phone. Sorry. I don't know what the
all right. I was like, wait, that's not do I have it's my alarm too. So it freaked me out. So anyway, what Tracy talks about is success factors, right? Of a podcast. And these are the 5 that we think are, what make a podcast really successful, not only for the listeners, but also for you, the podcast host, because you're not going to keep doing it necessarily if it's all about number one. I mean, maybe some people will, because maybe they're at that point in their lives where they just want to give back and they don't need to get anything else out of it. But the best podcasts are doing some sort of social good or providing some sort of value to the listener for free. And then it's also great if they have an entertainment factor. Now, Scott Carson knows a lot about that. He's always very entertaining when you watch his shows, and he's got all the sound effects going and, all sorts of cool stuff. But then, using your podcast to really raise awareness for you and your brand, the publicity side of things. And that's what comes in most here with social media, and what I'm going to talk quite a bit about today is the publicity side of it, and using social media as a tool to help, raise awareness and get exposure and find more listeners, more leads. And so obviously that comes to number 4, getting, building your list and getting leads. And of course, most people, at least that we work with in podcasting, want to make money in some way, or they're using their podcast as a tool to market and grow their business for where they ultimately make money. Because if you don't make money, chances are you're not going to continue podcasting and bringing that great value to your listeners, right? So a couple of things I wanted to share that I don't know if everybody's doing. Oh, you took us out of gallery. I'm the only one on. That's cool. Okay. So a few things I wanted to share regarding that is, because of the binge factor, because of this show right here that I was showing you before, the binge factor, Tracy's gotten the opportunity to interview a lot of people. One of the people she got the opportunity to interview recently is Pat Flynn. And that episode, I think, just published last week, or maybe even just early this week. And what I want to focus on here are these, 2 different graphics. For every episode where you have a guest, we highly recommend creating a graphic, kind of like these you'd see here, that have your show brand in it, your headshot as the host, and that's Tracy's picture. Obviously, this is her show, not mine. And then the guest, in this case, she interviewed Pat Flynn. Now, Scott, with these 2, hopefully you can read them, with these 2 graphics here, one of them is a quote of something Pat said, which is, guest podcasting is the new guest blogging. And the other one is a quote of something Tracy said, Pat Flynn is one of the best teachers, not just for podcasting, but for creating a whole digital business. Scott, which one do you think would be of more interest to the guest?
Oh, definitely where you're quoting them a little bit, right?
Well, actually,
Ego bait?
I would suggest otherwise. This is ego. We call this ego bait. Yes, it is a graphic we send to the guest after the episode airs, where, you either can take a quote of something they said or a quote of something you said about them.
That's what I meant. I'm sorry. I stated that correctly. The blue one, the one on your technically.
All right. Because the way you said it, because the one right here over my shoulder of Pat Flynn in the white background is something he said. Now, is Pat likely to want to share that when he's sort of, it's something he said, it sounds really egotistical when he posts it, and or this little testimonial here that's Tracy saying how great Pat, something so really great about Pat. It's like a living testimonial. one of the best teachers, not just for podcasting, but creating a whole digital business. Now, Pat's very likely to share that with his followers, which gives exposure to the binge factor to all of those tens of thousands of people that listen to his show. So this is just one good example. Every episode we publish, every episode we produce has, if there's a guest, has a graphic like that. And then the guest receives an email with a lot of different graphics, but especially this one. And when they get it, and even if, especially if they have a PR team, a publicist, or a social media manager, PR firms love this stuff because we're giving them food to put out in social. That's one of the things that a lot of times people struggle with is, well, great. Yeah, I know I need to post every day on social media, but what am I going to post? Well, you publish at least one episode a week, you can have half a dozen different things like this and publish a different one every day to spread awareness for your show, giving the guests some exposure and then incentivizing them to give you exposure to their audience, right? So that's one that I highly recommend, and focusing again more on that testimonial, this one here, more like that testimonial than anything else. But you can take it to another level and produce a more significant, graphic that, can be used in other ways, still can be used, posted on social media. This is another guest Tracy had on the Binge Factor. And of course, Tracy is part of that. Part of what she does is she's an Authority magazine columnist. So whenever Tracy interviews anybody on the Binge Factor, it does get put not only on the Binge Factor website, it gets put on Authority magazine, the column, it gets put there for it. And then there's also the opportunity that BuzzFeed will pick it up. BuzzFeed picks up a percentage of all of Tracy's interviews and posts. So there's opportunity there. And so having graphics like this that you can share, that gives the guests some exposure, it highlights some of the things that, they did. This is Erica Blocker, host of Moms with Dreams. And it gives you some 5 points to take away about, how, if you're a podcaster, what's her binge factor and how you can make your show more successful. So anyway, you can really go deeper into graphics like this. Another thing, as an example, that Tracy's doing to sort of give back, and this is the website for the Binge Factor, but she's also, aside from giving people exposure for seasoned podcasters and what makes them bingeable, she's starting another on a different day of the week on Tuesdays now, another kind of episode where she's highlighting 5 new podcasts and what makes them so exciting. I'll come back to that in a little bit because we have an opportunity for anybody watching today if they'd like to apply to get featured. But let's see. When it comes back to, hold on, I want to make sure I got this right. Whoops, doing the wrong thing here. When it comes back to getting, in terms of what you're going to put out on social media, there's a really good quote, and I want to share this with everybody. Is, it's a famous one, Dale Carnegie. And obviously you can read it. I don't have to read the whole, or unless it's too small. But the whole point about curiosity and showing care, not only for your guest, and this is I guess I would say a tip for people that are interviewing others, is to be interested in other people. You get more people interested in you than trying to get other people interested directly in you, by becoming interested in other people and digging into them and being curious and finding out what makes them tick and bringing that to your audience. But at the same time, I think this applies to what you post on social media. If you can give of yourself and not make your posts all about you, but about something for them, showing that care is going to go a long way and get a lot more people interested in you. One of the things I also thought I would mention, a lot of times people have cover art for their show that has their face on it. And I'm always worried one of these people is going to be watching during this presentation. I know it's going to happen someday, and it's going to either bite me or Tracy in the butt here, but whoever's giving the presentation. But the thing is, I mean, look at the 5-minute marketing guide. Does that, his face on there, tell you he's a very experienced marketer and you should listen to him? I mean, I don't know. I don't really think so. He looks kind of young, and 5-minute marketing, I mean, to me, maybe it looks like he's only got 5 minutes worth of advice to give us. I don't know. To me, when you make your show all about you and not about the listener, you're likely to not get as many people listening. So making, having cover art, and that's why you'll see none of our cover art ever has our photos on it, even if we get to be well known in the industry. And I've lost my slide here. There we go. Even though I've we're getting pretty well known in the podcast industry, still feed your brand. It's meant to be, hey, about feeding your brand. And the Binge factor, what makes these shows we're interviewing bingeable, it's about them, it's about the listener, and it's about what's in it for them. And that, I think, comes through in social media posting as well.
But also too, Tom, don't you? I know you agree that most people are searching for shows on a very small screen, and so if you're looking for a title, you want the title to stand out, not the face, right?
You really do. It makes it really hard. And you know what? I just had a new, actually, there's a good acquaintance of ours who's coming over to work with us at Podetize, and I don't want to throw her under the bus. And I could use her as an example, but let me put the point is, her cover art is all about her and her face, her headshot, right? And that's fine. At the end of the day, probably a third of our customers have their face on the headshot because that's the way they want it. And guess what? It's your show. You can do whatever you want. And I completely believe in that. And I will support you wholeheartedly and do my damnedest to get you found regardless. But I really do think that unless you're a nationally known celebrity, it can hurt you. And unintentionally, and even people's subconscious, if they're looking at shows and they find you and you don't look like them, or they don't look like you, people tend to like people like themselves, and they might skip it. There's a reason the Voice TV show has everybody sing with the professional backs turned, right? Yeah. So they listen to the actual content and the talent with the message, and don't make a judgment by what they see. So it's really the same principle applies here. Once you get them listening, they're probably hooked, right? But so there was a really good point. I was going to segue from that one too, and I just lost it.
She needs to remove her face. She's got her branding in play. I know who you're talking to. You know
who I'm talking about? I love her. She's great. Okay. Well, so here's the thing. When I go to her website and I look at all her posts for her podcast, every single image is the cover art with a very small amount of text with the change of the guest name. And when I scroll through a feed, now this has a very real social media application, okay? Yep. When I scroll through that feed on her website, I'm seeing the same image. And I don't know if any of you are anything like me, but I respond to visual before I read. And when I see the same image, I'm like, oh, I've seen this. Keep scrolling until I see something I haven't seen before. Same thing happens in your social media feed. If every time you're posting about your show, and I see people making this mistake, there are certain tools that will auto post your podcast episode audio, convert it into a video, and put it out on social media, because all you can do is put out a video. And I'm going to get to something about that in another minute and show you a good example. But when you just, if all it did was put up, this cover art here, and then a play button, and then in small text, the title of the episode under it, it looks the same every single episode you publish, and it's not going to cause people to listen. So some people say, oh, well, I want to be on this platform, or I use this service because they auto post my podcast on Facebook. Well, that's great that it does that, but you gotta get people to click and listen and stop. And if I see the same thing over and over in your feed, I'm scrolling, seeing that image, they're never going to stop. So that's like, to us, a cardinal sin. And this is one thing I also want to share with you, if I find where the heck I put that slide. You can tell this is a presentation that's meant for a much longer thing. Oh, there it is, because I lost it. All right, so now we create audiograms for customers that want them. We contain audiograms, which is a graphic of your show that has the actual waveform that is reacting to your voice, and then has the captions there, and then that at least has some motion to it. And while I do like having a different graphic image every time, it also is, if it's templated, it can run the risk of, people think they've seen it before, but here we try to make the guest's headshot really big. That would change. The motion helps a little bit, but an audiogram is another really good way to put out your content on social media. And because you can't post an MP3 file, you can post a video file. When we create these ego bait images and some of these audiograms, we know you have to have some formula and some template to do that, but we usually create 3 and rotate them so you don't see the same one back-to-back episodes. It's another good tip. So I'll tell you, I don't claim to be a social media expert at all. I just am always doing the best that I can to help people be seen, heard, and found, and to get them the most exposure possible for their shows. And it keeps changing. We keep doing new things. I think the audiograms are huge. And so there's a lot of a lot of options. We're constantly experimenting, and that's one reason why we start a new podcast every year. We're not just a company producing other podcasts because we figured it out 5 years ago. We think we know it all, and we're just running a playbook. We start a new one every year at least, and last year we started 2 new ones, so that we're experiencing new now, starting a new podcast, what's working today, not what worked 2, 3, 5 years ago. So we're in the trenches with you. We practice what we preach. And social media is a huge opportunity to get more exposure, raise awareness for your show. But the other thing is, I would always not recommend posting, even if you do your episodes in video, generally in a public area. I generally wouldn't publish the entire video, only in a private group or something, but just have clips, things that build anticipation, and try and get people to click and go back to your website, and have your website be the home base, the center of influence for your show. So, hey, I wanted to, Scott, and not that I'm necessarily done, but I just want to let people know, hey, anybody watching can go to this page, podetize.com/gifts, and you can also, go to the bingefactor.com, which is where Tracy's podcast is. And if you have a new show and you want to maybe be highlighted and apply to be highlighted in the Giving Tuesday episode, or you have a seasoned show and you want to be interviewed on the Binge Factor with a chance to get your show featured in BuzzFeed. Not every show will get featured. They kind of pick and choose, but there's a lot of opportunities there. So check out the bingefactor.com, and there are ways there you can apply to be a guest or apply to be on Giving Tuesday, or podetize.com/gifts has some other, some free resources and some things that may be of interest to podcasters out there. And even if you're not a podcaster, you can just check out all the different opportunities for social media exposure.
Yeah, that's the beauty of what you guys do, is you also having a guest catalog for a lot of people to come in. If they are speakers, are looking for podcast guests to speak on, you've got that as well too.
Right. And we're ramping some of those things up. We're getting a lot more people into it, and we're the Podetize website and user dashboard is all been being worked on behind the scenes, and later in July is going live. And the new directory, wow, is that going to be a lot easier for everybody to access and then instantly put up their own profile if they want to join it. anybody who's interviewed on the Binge Factor or ends up, being in a Giving Tuesday podcast is also put into these directories as long as they want to be. I mean, you can opt out, but it's just opportunity for more connection and more exposure. So most people don't. Yeah, we're trying to. Our goal is just helping everybody be found, marketing, grow your business or your personal brand, whatever it is your goals are out there. We've got to help you be found. So
I have to say
social
big
media.
thank you because without you kind of approaching me, I would have never launched the Note Closers show back 4 years ago. And you guys do that well. Besides just production, you do the full service podcast launching as well too out there.
Yes.
So that's a big thing for those that are watching that are thinking about starting a podcast or looking to start a podcast. You guys help launch and do a great job in launching and helping people out with that stuff as well.
Yes, well, we do. Thank you. Yes, and we also had to. We also got into web development, and not that it was our primary goal, but we had so many podcasters who needed support with their website, whether it's just maintenance of the website, keeping all the plugins up to date, making sure you've got backups going. If you get hacked, Scott's website, was it late last year? I forget.
Yeah, it was a year ago, basically to the week for the most part, where it got hacked on an old plugin. Not anything, something weird,
Yeah, even plugins that are safe today, if they don't get updated and other things around them get updated, they can be a vulnerability and an opportunity for hackers to come in and cause trouble. And you might think, well, what hacker's ever going to care about my little company? I'll tell you, we've seen it too many times. They just take it as a challenge to do it because they can. And it's a little disappointing. But anyway, website maintenance program or building new websites, or we convert them from Squarespace to WordPress or Wix to WordPress. WordPress is where you want to be, just in case anybody wondered. I mean, that's the platform that's most in alignment with Google and is going to help you be found, because at the end of the day, that's the point, is have you get found. And so anyway, so I guess that's what I wanted to share today. Thank you, Scott, for being a customer. Boy, I feel like the Brady Bunch. Thank you, Scott.
I know, right? We got the boxes here.
Yeah, you're above me from what I can see. And Scott gave me the Heisman in the beginning. Wasn't sure podcasting was going to work for him, but now he's one of the best examples, model podcasters out there. He's crushing it with not only what he does creating the content, but how he spreads it out on social media. So there's nobody better to run International Social Media Day than Scott Carson, because you are the master. All of us look, all right, what should we be doing? Let's make sure we look what Scott's doing, because we should be doing all those things. He's everywhere.
Well, I'm everywhere because you guys do the majority of the lifting. You make it easy. I can just take the infographics, the images from the episodes. All I got to do is hit the record button and upload an image or two into YouTube. But then taking the full blogs and repurposing those, not only on our website, which drives a lot of SEO, but shortening them and put them into our YouTube descriptions, and then also turning it into other content as well. But you guys do all the heavy lifting. I don't have to do any of the editing. I don't have to do any of that stuff, which I'm not talented at. All I got to do is hit record and upload to Dropbox.
And then you're done. Yeah. So I wasn't really sort of going into all the nitty gritty, but I mean, we just multicast your content everywhere, and it's the blogs that get you found on Google search, which is really critical. But using all these tools to spread the word on social is also very important. And today's about social, right? So
as we say, keeping it fresh, keeping it original, and staying up to date on a constant basis. Those three things will help you find success, right, Tom?
Absolutely. And our, we know y'all have businesses to run, so you need to stay focused on running your business. We want this to be something that's easy for you to do. Just record, upload, and you're done. Not necessarily have it be the majority of what you do. People think they get overwhelmed. You can record all your content in a half a day a month and publish it for the rest of the month. It doesn't have to take over your life. So anyway, thank you, Scott.
Thank you, brother. How's the knee doing? Doing well?
The knee's doing great. I've been kickboxing for 2 months. I'm doing all sorts of stuff. I'm going to be ready for next ski season, assuming the ski areas open up again.
There we go.
So no, I've taken COVID-19 lockdown as an opportunity to focus on health and conditioning and improving all the above. So doing a lot of working out. In fact, in an hour and a half, I have my kickboxing class. So
Well, good stuff. Well, buddy, go be safe. Thank you as always. Can't wait to see you next time in person. Thank God we hung out at Podfest for a while, right?
I know. I can't believe that was the last time we saw each other. And it's now what, 4 months ago? About
Yeah, at least 4 months. So
Jeez. Amazing.
we'll see each
Okay,
other
Scott.
before the year.
Alrighty.
Thanks, Tom.
buddy. Take care.
Yeah, bye.